Hey, I want to apologize. I don't know what happened there. Just was going live, and I think after about 30 minutes, all of a sudden the thing it just kind of kicked off. So I apologize to everyone for that. And if anybody wants to chime in, or I can just kind of finish up um, what I was ministering on was that, you know, resurrection is about life, and you know, the one thing about life is that sometimes we think life is supposed to be reflected in a certain or particular way, or just some, particular mindset or way of being. But when Jesus came out of the tomb, he didn't come out of the tomb in the same way that he went in. He came forth out with a whole new life, a whole new way of being, a whole new uh, life itself. And he came so that he could resurrect a whole new way of being with God that was not based on a bunch of do's and don'ts, a bunch of overly set rules that really didn't do anything but try to establish to one group to think that they were better than another. And even after the fact, when we were discussing that earlier about how with Peter and with how the Spirit of God was being poured out to the Gentiles, that, man, it changed the whole dynamic of who God is and who God was to them, even to the ones that God was using. And so I want to bring life to you to say that you were intended to have a relationship with God so that you can learn from God what he wants to show forth in your life. That this God who created the variety of animals and flowers and plants and trees, all this variety, do we actually think that when he created the very thing that was closest to him, being man, that he actually wanted us to be cookie cutter? We would have certain basic foundations, which was love for God and love for one another. But a lot of this overly excessive rules and do's or don'ts should have never existed. The issue came up and they addressed it. But again, we drifted right back off into it later on. And the main point was because it's our human nature to want to feel like we have to distinguish ourselves from others. That I can't look common on the same ground. And even if we do it unknowingly, just like Peter, he was on a rooftop, he was unknowingly didn't realize that God had cleansed and made everyone whole before him. He had to accept that. And we have to accept that. There's so much more I wish I could go into in depth about it. And I will, I think, at a later time. But the main point I want us to realize on this Resurrection Sunday, this day in which we have chosen to celebrate the life of Jesus Christ. And one more point I want to make about that whole situation, Jesus Christ and the resurrection. The tomb, the stone in front of the tomb, it wasn't rolled away so Jesus could come out. It was rolled away so that you could have a witness to know that he was gone, that he was no longer there. Jesus in the new life didn't need the stone rolled away. Remember, he walked in the room with the door being closed and stood and appeared before them. So he didn't have the stone rolled away so that he could come out of the tomb. And the one thing I love about the whole thing about the resurrection is, while it was dark and the tomb was closed in, God was working something in the quiet and in the silence that was revealed when Jesus came forth. And that's what I want you to understand about this time that we're in. It seems like we have been tuned in by the situation going on. But even in this time of being, and quote unquote, tuned in by the virus and the situations and the fears and the things that we're facing, God is working and bringing forth life that is going to be revealed. Because remember, before they saw Jesus being resurrected, That life was already being portrayed in the tomb, in the darkness, in the silence. That life was already coming forth. And you can be that example for God even now, to where God can reveal that he is showing forth his life in this time, in this hour, a life that's beyond the rules and regulations that we've been tossed with. Now, does it mean that we sit around and can do any and everything? No, it's not a license just to do and be any kind of way. But it is a privilege and an honor for us to be given an opportunity to get to know God one-on-one and get a chance to see and know things about God that we would never know unless we had relationships with one another, to realize that, hey, this is what I learned about God. Hey, this is what I learned about God. Hey, man, do you know God revealed this? Because there's no way that one small group of people, there's no way one denomination of believers could ever encompass the full knowledge of who God is. But that's why he has so many people. That's why he has a whole vastness of who he is that he still wants to reveal. But we've locked him down to our little rules and sections. And we're missing God. You know, remember, Jesus said one time, he made the statement. He said that when he was challenged about healing in an area that wasn't his hometown, and he was challenged by that. And what Jesus told them was, he was like, don't you remember that when Israel was in a famine for 3+ years, he said there were many widows, he said, there were in the land during that time. He says, but God sent Elijah to a widow who was not even an Israelite, or a non-accepted person, or what we would call, she wasn't a member of our church section, church society, as we say it. She wasn't a saved type person by their standards. But that's who he sent his word, Elijah, to bring life to that woman. And he says, did you not know that there were many lepers in the time of Nathan, but yet God healed Nathan the leper, who was not one of the quote-unquote chosen people of the time? He says he was revealing to them that it's not about what you think makes you all this particular. Yes, Israel, yes, you my special people, but you're special because of the special purpose I have for you. But just like anybody else, other people are special for the purpose that God has for them. So we need to be mindful of that and be careful of that we don't miss God because we have our minds closed down in one way of thinking. So I'm inviting you to embrace the resurrected way of thinking. I'm inviting you to embrace the resurrected way of life, of living in Christ. This time is an opportunity that's been given to us. We can take it, take advantage of it, believe God in a whole new way, and see God manifest and reveal himself in ways that we never ever could have imagined. So that's what I want to share with everyone. I hope you all were blessed. I apologize for the first part of it kicking off, but I'm glad that some of you all came back and chimed back in, and I pray that it was a blessing to you. God bless you, God keep you, and enjoy that meal. Bye-bye.